author of the explosive thriller book Who Painted My Money White, a bestseller on Amazon, having occupied the #1 slot for several weeks. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to address us on this evening. I welcome HEF State President Rajan Iyer, Secretary Padma Bhushan ji, Treasurer PVN Menon ji, Greater Cochin Chapter President Balagopal ji, Greater Cochin Chapter Secretary Devika Menon, Treasurer Santosh Kumar, Tripunithura Chapter Secretary Uday Kumar, and Treasurer Sunil Kumar to this session. Also, I welcome past State President M.D. Unikishan, Founder President Goban ji, PGurus Menon, Pradeep ji, and HEF Chapter PSTs and members from various HEF chapters and invited guests to this webinar. Thanking you, and over to Balagopal ji, Greater Cochin Chapter President, for a few words.
Thank you, Santosh ji. It's indeed a privilege for us in HEF to have Mr. Sree Iyer address us this evening. He has authored the book, Who Painted My Money White, which was a bestseller on Amazon, having occupied the #1 slot for several weeks. The thread of the story emanates at Kochi, almost a decade back, with the landing of a few containers with counterfeit currency. Sitting 14,500 kilometers away in San Francisco, Mr. Sree Iyer could connect the dots and realize the sinister designs behind this movement. And he then went on to create the bestseller, which is a fact-based fiction. But for us at Kochi, it was like any other news, and just like the money which seemed to have disappeared, this subject also faded away from our memory. I now request past President Sri Kumar Menon to introduce our guest of honor.
Thank you, Balagopal and Santosh. I'm doing the formal introduction because Mr. Sree Iyer is not known to most of the the audience. From being an engineer by calling, he turned into an inventor, innovator, entrepreneur, and author due to his innate passion for thinking and doing things differently. He has always been on the cutting edge, looking for the next big opportunity. He has 37 patents in the field of hardware and software and continues to track fintech, storage, and encryption technologies. Many of his patent-based applications used extensively are cryptography, encrypted storage, flashcard readers, to name a few. A regular commentator on prime time TV channels of India, he represents a neutral view and adds perspective to whichever debate he joins. He was invited to be a media panelist at the World Hindu Congress in Chicago in September 2018, where he talked about news media and the Hindu perspective. He also participated in New Delhi in February of 2019 in the conference Earth, a Cultural Quest, to celebrate India's rich culture, Indic sciences, and traditional knowledge. His first book of fiction, which is already mentioned, Who Painted My Money White, is a runaway success. In both the ebook and paperback versions, it is a bestseller on Amazon, having occupied the #1 slot for several weeks. This story begins and ends in Kerala and highlights what dangers India faces from a flood of near-perfect fake currency that has flooded God's own country as well as India and distributed to the members of one particular minority community. In 2016, he started an online company which has got the ID of www.PGurus.com with a focus on providing insights for the global Indian. PGurus has grown into an independent, fair, and accurate portrayer of India. It has blogs and in-depth articles that primarily cover 4 aspects of India, namely politics, business, culture, and investing. PGurus has the most extensive coverage of money laundering, tax evasion, and stock manipulation by NDTV, the art of living case by the National Green Tribunal, Augusta Westland VVIP chopper scam, Raga Saga, that is Rahul Gandhi's British citizenship saga, Chidambara Rahasya, and many more. Recently, PGurus has also started publishing in Hindi and Tamil with a view to adding more Indian languages soon. Hopefully, Malayalam will be the next. He has a large number of areas where his expertise is. It includes, and he often writes about them. They are basically new technologies such as blockchain, the future of e-commerce, financial instruments, analyzing money flows across countries, tax havens, black money, and all matters related to money. Much of the white-collar crime being committed now is sophisticated, layered, and done with a view to obfuscate, that is to obscure or make it unintelligible. These posts try to unravel the complexities of high finance and tell the story in simple to understand words. PGurus has been at the forefront in terms of highlighting corruption by the previous UPA governments. Many scoops appeared first at PGurus that the mainstream media subsequently picked up, such as Forex derivative scam, Augusta Westland, back ops, Chidambara Rahasya, etc. These stories combined advanced technologies with in-depth content to provide a compelling narrative. NDTV Frauds was his first book, released in e-book and print form in February 2017, and again was the second highest Kindle e-book in self-published category. In June 2017, his second book, it's titled The Gist of GSTN, came out, which describes how the newly formed Goods and Services Tax Network, GSTN, can be designed to create new jobs. Some of the concepts underlined in this book were mentioned in the Union Budget of 2018, specifically paragraph 112. In September 2017, he published his third book, The Rise and Fall of UP, which is the political analysis of the newest political party in India, Aam Aadmi Party. C Company appeared as a series of posts in .com and has been critically acclaimed as an anthology that showed one man's burning ambition to amass riches and to an extent a person can go to achieve that. Since November 2018, he has joined a Swiss-based fintech startup, Linic, as its chief solutions officer. He continues to run his popular blog site, pgurus.com, which writes about India's politics, culture, and business. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to present to you the multifaceted, erudite scholar and thinker of our times, Mr. Sree M. Iyer. He will now speak to you live from California, USA. Over to Sree Iyer.
Namaskaram to one and all. Thank you so much, Balagopalji, Sri Kumarji, for those kind words. I hope to measure up to your expectations today. I think you can hear me, right? Everybody is able to hear me fine?
Very clear.
Thank you. Thank you. So this has been a very interesting journey for me. One of the things that Sri Kumarji mentioned about me starting a fintech startup, the name of the company is Liquinec, Liquidity and Equities together, Liquinec. And we are beta testing our first product right now. In fact, I have about 40 testers in India testing this product. It has a lot of relevance to India. You know, how many times have you had this debate, dinner time, lunchtime, conversation? Oh, you know, there are so many languages, but my mother tongue is a little bit better than everything else. And that person will have like 4 different reasons why it is. And somebody else have a counter and so on and so forth. So, but the whole discussion will take place in English. So anyway, I'm just capturing an interesting thing that happens in our day-to-day life. So this product tries to address some of these things, and when it is ready for public consumption, I'll be very happy to announce it to everyone. But stay tuned. This is a difficult product because it has a lot of objectives in mind, and we are almost there. But anyway, so just wanted to tell you that there is a product that is coming out very shortly to India, and in fact to the whole world. The other thing I wanted to say was, I was an inventor working in Silicon Valley, you know, for those of you who have been to Silicon Valley, you go to any coffee store, Peet's Coffee or Starbucks or any other such store, your adjacent table, you'll have a conversation of 4 people talking about the next best thing that is going to hit the world. This is there, that is there. I was like that. I had done that for about 20 plus years, 25 years in fact. And then something happened in 2014 when I said, what am I doing? This is all great, but there is something more that I can probably offer, because I had the privilege of growing up in a community where almost every friend of mine had a different mother tongue. I mean, I heard Gujarati, Punjabi, Sindhi, Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, and so on and so forth. So, when you are a child, you absorb all these things and it stays with you for a long time. So I said that, I can probably read and write 3 or 4 languages, Urdu also. Why don't I try and make use of that knowledge? And that's how my writing started. And one thing led to the other. PGurus was born. And at this point of time, PGurus is completely reliant on donations and advertisements to fuel and fund our growth. We have been able to do that so far, thanks to your patronage and help. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for that. And I also have one good news in that this talk couldn't be more timely, because my second book, which also has Who Painted in it, is going to be released in just a couple of days. The ebook will come out as always first, and then followed by the paperback. Thanks to Corona, the challenges have gone up a little bit, but I think we're going to make sure that this book is going to be available on Amazon as soon as possible. But the ebook, it is my guess that it will be available in the next 4 or 5 days. And it's important that it needs to come out now. When you read the synopsis, you'll understand why I'm saying that. So let's look at what happened in India from the time Modi came to power in 2014 up until, I think, end of 2016. There so many things happened, especially towards the end of 2016, that it came and just went like a very fast train crossing the platform. Very, very quickly things happened, and many people couldn't understand why demonetization was done first. Second is, after having said that, somebody said, well, when Janata Party was in power, they also did a demonetization. They withdrew the then 1,000 rupee note. Same way, BJP is in power, they are also withdrawing the note. That was one of the schools of thought. Then the other question that came up is, okay, the higher denomination is being withdrawn, but the newer denomination is even higher than the existing higher denominations. The government was replacing 1,000 rupees and 500 rupee notes with 2,000 rupee notes and a new 500 rupee note. More importantly, the new 2,000, the new 500 had different dimensions. Now, this actually intrigued me a little bit. Why go through the trouble of changing the dimensions of the rupees notes themselves? Because I knew the amount of pain it is to go and calibrate every ATM machine so that it can hold this new currency with the newer dimensions correctly. So it was a lot of work, but Modi ji went ahead and did that. And there was a lot of speculation as to what this was going to do. Black money is going to be curbed. 13% will not come back. So the Reserve Bank will have only 87% of the money it printed back in its reserves. And therefore, we would be able to get rid of black money. And you have to also remember that the online pay systems were coming up. But in 2016, it wasn't as prevalent as it was in probably a few months later when GST happened and Paytm was used and so on. But this 2016 event forced everybody to say, okay, now I have to use online transaction. In fact, this event might have put to rest the Eclairs chocolate, which was practically legal tender for like 5 rupees. If your shop wallah didn't have 5 rupees to give you, he gave you an Eclairs chocolate. And the diabetics were thrilled because they could eat this before their wives or husbands could catch them. So the point here is that India took its first big step towards becoming an online-based economy after the demonetization. So that was one data point that I had. And then as I was, doing articles on PGurus, somewhere along the line, someone mentioned to me about these container trucks that came in. And I said, well, up until then, I had written only non-fiction books like this one, which is NDTV Frauds. And I was thinking, okay, so there are 2 data points now. I'd like to connect these 2 data points. The containers that carried the money and came in, and the fact that the succeeding government is forced to do a demonetization. Amidst all these things, as we were compiling data about a certain finance minister / home minister / finance minister again, we found out that this person had ordered that India buy its paper from the same source that was selling paper to Pakistan. So if you understand how a currency note is made, and I've done a little bit of work on this, electronics is my profession, but finance, fintech, this has turned out to be my hobby. And that's how all this happened. So then I was saying, why would somebody want to go and switch to the same source, which is supplying currency, and an adversarial neighbor, if they are using it, your first instinct would be to not do that. But yet our government did it. And to this date, this man spouts forth on every other thing in the world. He cannot explain why he switched to De La Rue to get the paper. You see, this is the kind of double talk that I hate about the UPA people. These guys have literally brought India down to its knees. If you read a slightly technical series called Forex Derivative Scam, again, Mr. Chidambaram is front and center in that too. That one as a single event that really ruined a lot of MSMEs, from which many could not even recover. The sad part is that case where the MSMEs Association sued a bunch of public sector banks, that case has been in Supreme Court, but it has not been taken up. Nobody wants to touch it. So this is the sad aspect of India. When, how come that came in 2013, 6-7 years old now, and still it has not seen the light of the day. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let's get back to who painted my money white. So when I was doing this research, I had talked to someone like you, and again, I'm sorry if I'm going to hurt some feelings of some of you guys, because I say in the book there were 100 chartered accountants tasked with the job. That part is true. Somebody told me this and said that he was one of those 100, and that's how some of the details emerged. And then after that, a lot of the things are fictional. And also, I want to make it clear here that even though I am mentioning one particular minority community, if this was done to anybody else, they would have done the same thing. Money was being given for free. Why would you not take it? And that money was so good that it was considered the real thing, and the fake currency was the real thing that was being put out by India. In fact, when my book was released in Kochi, Dr. T.P. Senkumar, ex-DG of Kerala, had told in his speech that during the time this currency, the fake currency started circulating, he was the chairman of Kerala State Road Transport Association Corporation, and he had been told that, look, I'm getting these counterfeit notes because, in collection, bus is always cash-based. So he was getting a lot of these counterfeit notes. And he said, let's see if the banks can recognize it. So he takes a counterfeit note and a real note, 500 rupee note, and he goes to a bank. I think it was the State Bank of India. I'm sorry to name them. And he tells them, look, one of them is fake, one of them is real. Can you find out which is what? And the bank person actually picked out the fake currency as the real currency. So that is how well this was done. You see, why this was possible was because in the making of a currency, paper currency, you have three variables involved: the machine that you use with, the paper that you print it on, and the security threads and other security things that you put, watermark, silver thread. And I don't know if you remember, during Raghuram Rajan's reign, at some point he said that, people who are having this particular denomination notes, look at the note, If you have the year marked on it, you can keep it. If you do not have the year marked on it, please go to the bank and exchange it. This was even before demonetization came. So India had this problem on their hands. They really couldn't find out what was counterfeit and what was real. And here is, look at the irony of it. You know, every time there would be stories in the newspaper about counterfeit currency, that would be always said that, oh, it came in from Malda, it came in from Nepal, it came in from some other district in West Bengal. It never transpired that the bulk of the money was coming from the other direction. So you create the noise in one part of the country, everybody is looking there, and the money is coming in from the other side. Now, according to Dr. Sen Kumar, what he said, and it was also backed up by Sri T.G. Mohandas, both excellent friends of mine whose word I trust, they said that this money, that counterfeit money that came in, that made instant millionaires of people with very modest means before that in Kerala. Not only that, it has also enabled this minority community to purchase just about every useful riverfront, oceanfront, and the land that is along the highway, national highway. There is a grand plan in progress now, and we are only seeing bits trickle out in the way of like Shaheen Bagh protests and the other things that happened in Delhi during the visit of Donald Trump. You see, in some ways, I have kind of poked the bee's hornet's nest, and slowly some bigs have started coming out. Because my book came in December 2019. In fact, I was in Delhi releasing the book when Shaheen Bagh protests were just starting out, 26th of December or something like that, around that time frame. So the initial genesis, if you look at the problems of CAA, those all were started out from students whose origins were in Kerala. So there is a lot of correlation that shows that a lot of laboratory, R&D, everything happens in Kerala, but it is never played out, never carried out in Kerala. It always is experimented outside of Kerala. How far this observation of mine is true or not, only time will bear out. But think about this. The bombing that took place in Sri Lanka on the churches, now it is slowly coming out that it was all hatched in two states, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And most of the money for that, still people don't know where it came from. So you can see that this money that came in. Now, one other interesting data point. This is something that the government or the RBI is refusing to acknowledge, but knowledgeable sources have told me that when the money was, collected back after the demonetization window ended, RBI got 113% back. So where is 100% expecting 87% back, and where is 113% coming back? So if you look at the number, it is 26% more than what the bank RBI expected. So that means you do some math, if you think about the velocity of money prior to 2016, because there was hardly any online transactions before that. So the velocity of money in India is around 10x. So if 1 rupee, it generates 10 rupees worth of velocity, going from hand to hand, in various forms before it is rendered useless. So the amount of money sloshing about in the system because of the fake currency is huge. And I believe, and this is still my position, that you have not seen anything yet, that there can be even bigger challenges. But be that as it may, at least the demonetization put some amount of brakes on the fake currency and the money distribution itself. What, however, it has not done is it has not been able to prevent fake currency from being printed. Pakistan went back to, doing this thing. I'm not just saying Pakistan, it could also be China. Right now, the way things are, it is difficult to find out whether it is China doing something or Pakistan doing something. For some reason, everybody has it in for India. And I don't know why. Indians are the most peace-loving people. They have never started any war. So this is, if you are a Sanatani, if you are thinking, karma will take care of everything, you must be really thinking, my God, what did I do to get all these things? And now I'm seeing in US, same kind of narrative, fake narratives being peddled. City councils are passing resolutions on anti-CAA. 3-page resolution, they can't read, 3-page law, they cannot read that. And they just regurgitate what CAIR has written, and then they just say, okay, let's vote on it. And it's almost always a unanimous vote. That shows you the depth of penetration of a certain entity. It is really sad. We have woken up finally, I think, and we are trying to fight hard, but this is not something that is limited to India. This is it's a worldwide malaise. I'm sorry to digress. So moving forward, since the fake currency was being detected and the denominations got stopped, they had to find other ways to bring illicit money in. And that is what is happening in the form of gold. And you might have seen a lot of these videos where the gold is actually oxidized in such a way that it will escape detection from the scanners in the airport. So people are wearing that instead of the belts, they are stitching it in where the belt position will be in your pants. It's just incredible how many ways they have tried to bring gold in. Now, unfortunately for India, its revenue collection mechanism is broke. And now with Corona, I mean, all your models, everything have kind of fallen by the wayside. And it's really like, you've pushed the reset button on India's economy. You can restart. The government could have done many good things, but unfortunately, it's what it is. I have a lot of dissatisfaction in that. Even a non-economist like me could have figured out that India should be looking at putting money on the supply side, whereas on the demand side, whereas it is putting money on the supply side. This is, in my opinion, not the right thing to do. But be that as it may, this book, I'm hoping, and my following succeeding books, they're all on money. It's a money trilogy because I felt that unless India gets its financial systems in order, it is going to be very difficult for India to be able to get to the next level in terms of prosperity. I'll give a simple example. China has forced the entire world to say that we are going to accept your currency only at between 6 RMB to 7 RMB. What did the world do? They said, we are not going to accept your RMB. We are only going to deal with the Hong Kong dollar. And China figured out a way to have some sort of a relationship between those two. And the Hong Kong dollar was what was the main transaction element. Whereas if you take a look at India, India doesn't seem to really know what the value of its rupee is. In my opinion, it should be much more. In other words, it should be around 40 or 45, not the 74 or 75. And this is being artificially kept low by vested interests, I might say. And this is another big scam that's going on, currency rigging. And I've touched on it, but my problem is I talked about stock exchange, how co-location has illegally enriched a few pockets. And SEBI got into the act, but they passed an order so full of holes that it can be immediately challenged. And not one person has paid 1 paisa for all their transgressions. And this continues on and on. Now, at least what am I planning to do? From my books, I'm trying to educate the common man in as simple a language as possible that white collar crime is very, very hard to detect because it is not happening like the way we are used to seeing corruption. Like, for example, if you wanted to talk about corruption at government offices, you would just go and give the guy a rupee and then you'll open the drawer and you look into his drawer, there's like a ton of currency notes. And that was the old method. Now, things are not happening that way. I mean, corruption is still there, but this is all peanuts compared to what is happening at a global level. For example, over-invoicing, under-invoicing, when India is dealing with imports and exports. You see, you have like a bundle of problems. And I'm sure when Modi ji wakes up every day in the morning, I have 5,000 problems. Which one I'm going to work on today? So there is that big challenge. But everything starts at some point. And in my opinion, that is something that affects every one of us, and that is money. You got to fix the money system. Once you fix that, a lot of other things will start falling in place. And that is the reason why I kept saying that blockchain is a way that you can fix some of the shortfalls that you have in the money. For example, I tell in the book how money laundering is done without getting caught. Because Indian financial agencies that are looking for crime, they have a threshold. They say, okay, any transaction below a certain number, let's not look at it. Only after that number, like for example, 1 lakh, that they're going to look at it closely. So what happens? The money gets packetized and distributed at a number that is lesser than that. So it escapes the eyes of those people who are looking for money laundering. But with a blockchain-based money system, what happens is you can track, let's say you printed 100,000 rupees. You started with 100,000 rupees and you distributed it to 100,000 people, 1 rupee each. From this 1 rupee, you can trace back all the way to the 100 rupees as to who, that is what is blockchain. Blockchain can track how many hands it changed and where was the source of this 100 rupee. It is computationally a little bit extensive, but we figured out, that is my fintech startup, figured out a way to make the computations easier. And we are also deploying that in some limited sectors because this is not easy, but we're doing that. So long and short of it is, this is a book of fiction. It's fast read. It's a good way to understand the complexities of running a country as diverse as India is. At the same time, unless India's monetary systems get sorted out, India will always be stuck in this, I seriously doubt if India will reach to $5 trillion because the way Indian economy works is India's rupee gets depreciated faster than the exports for it to keep up with it. So what will happen is that you will always be in a small band, maybe up to 3 trillion, 3.5 trillion it will go, but 5 trillion is going to be difficult. And I'll tell you why it is difficult. We all accept that China is a huge country, that it's a big economy, the second biggest economy. Here is the reality. The RMB is not convertible. If China were to decide to let its RMB to float, it will drop by 100%. Today, China's economy is 13 trillion. If it drops by 100%, then in US dollar terms, it will be only 6.5 trillion. India is almost there. India is only at 3 trillion or something like that. So suddenly China doesn't look that big anymore. So you are going to see this thing happen because the way China is making its moves now, it is bizarre is all I can say. They are trying to make enemies out of all their neighbors. They are going and excursioning land in India and Taiwan and Vietnam. Everywhere they are just going and exerting their muscles. I don't know what exactly is going on there. Plus this coronavirus, that's not going away. And how the world, once it picks up, is going to react to China is going to be very interesting. I do know that many countries will start manufacturing on their own, in their own land, because they will figure that it is better to know the devil that you know than the angel that you don't. So this being able to be efficient with manufacturing in a lower cost country, I think that is going to take a bit of a beating. But anyway, back to the book. I'm sorry to diverge into all these things. Money, money, money. Money is the one that is the most important aspect of our lives. As long as we don't fix that, anything else would be just a band-aid solution. I have spoken for about 38 odd minutes. At this point, I'd like to know if you would like me to continue or if you want to have questions answered at this time. Sree
I think you can continue definitely with some more of your thoughts for us before we get into the question answers.
Okay, so just a few minutes. So I can talk about my next book. So I'm like I said, this is all about money. And the next book I'm going to talk about is what happens when three big things in India that are happening: politicians, cricket, and Bollywood. When all these three things come together, this whole concept of IPL, why was it formed? Why is it that politicians lust to become the state cricket association presidents? Most of them may have not even seen a cricket bat in their lives, and yet they want to become the president of this cricket association. Why is that? What is that makhi? What is that honey that is there in cricket associations that attracts all these politicians? And you have some lone warriors fighting it out who are not politicians, who are actually businessmen. And they are, in my opinion, an endangered species because everything is being done. And this is cutting across political parties, being done to shove out everyone. And all politicians want to be running all these cricket associations. Now, I think Corona has put a wrench in this whole thing, that cricket as a thing that everybody goes crazy on, I think is going to take a beating. But most certainly I can tell you, after reading my second book, people will start looking at life in a slightly different manner. Some of the examples that I have seen are the match fixing and other things are not limited to India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, which is where usually people used to say, oh, these guys go play a match in Sharjah, this is all fixed. Today, it is my contention, I could be wrong, but I usually am not because I do my homework, but I'm still writing it in fictional form. It is my contention that matches between other countries are also being rigged in a way that leads to a very unfamiliar conclusion. I'll give you a simple example. Cricket resumed after coronavirus. Just recently, there was a 3-match test series between India and West Indies, right? First match, West Indies won, which itself was a surprise because England is a stronger side, especially playing at home. That was a surprise. Second match, England won. The third match is being played in Old Trafford, where the ball swings a lot. And guess what West Indies does? They pick 2 spinners. Second thing, they win the toss. And if you have a spinner in your ranks, if you have 2 spinners in your rank, you want to bowl last, which means if you win the toss, you want to bat first. And West Indies chose to field. I tweeted it out saying that West Indies have lost this match. This is nothing but a tamasha. You see, what I'm trying to say is, everybody will say, oh, but then nobody threw his wicket away. Nobody caught the ball here. The point here is, if there is a bet about who's going to win the series, okay, at the beginning of the test series starting, people would have bet that England is going to sweep the series. But West Indies wins the first match. Then what happens? Anybody who would have done a contrarian bet would have cleaned up at that point. Same way, there is a group perhaps who wants to see this thing end in a certain way. It's all conjecture at this point, which is why this is a book of fiction. It's not a book of fact. But my point to all of you is, this is not something that is only limited to cricket. Soccer has this problem. Basketball has this problem. So it is something that is across countries, across sports. The most important thing is, please don't bet your money on it. It is just a spectacle. Somebody will score runs, somebody will take wickets. Just watch it for what it is and don't support it by taking and placing bets. I don't think 90% of people in India do that, but there are people who think that betting runs in their veins, that if they don't bet today, that they have not accomplished something in the day. It is for those people that you are losing money hand over fist. So I think with this, I would like to bring my talk to a stop, and I'd like to take questions from our viewers.
Thank you, Sree Iyer. That is a wonderful thing. Obviously, there are so many aspects which will be, have to be dealt with. But I think we have a nice number of 100 persons attending today. So perhaps we can take the questions now. And Balagopal wants to ask the first question.
Yeah, I would just like to request you to throw some light on the background of your first book, because you started, and in your inaugural speech also you said about Kochi. So, but can we hear something about that? What happened in November 2011?
So, here is the interesting thing. After I wrote the book, the November 2011 was an paper article. And if you look at the end of the book, last few pages, I have put references. So people might wonder, why would somebody put, this is last few pages. You can see the references. People might wonder, you're writing a book of fiction. Why do you have to put references? The idea for putting references is to say that there is a basis for this story. So there was a Rediff story that appeared saying that containers of cash, close to 5,000 crores in each container, 2 containers, 10,000 crores came in. Now, I was told in the Kochi book release that this kind of money has been flowing in from 2005. See, so what we have to see is you kind of sampled one time and you came up with the money. What must have been happening was that you have to look at the money that the Reserve Bank of India got back to kind of establish what is the circulation of fake currency. And that's going to be mind-boggling, guys. It is, I think you have to go back and look at Sri T.P. Senkumar's speech, but the numbers are truly mind-boggling. It is, I think, 1 year of tax revenue or something like that. The money, like fake currency, that is 4 lakh crores. And if you apply the 10 times velocity, you're talking 40 lakh crores impact of fake currency in India. And most of it, by the way, was spent in Kerala, acquiring land at enormous prices. Just think about it. How much real estate grew during the Chidambaram years? You know, today, if you look at any complex in Mumbai or Chennai or Bengaluru or Gurugram and so on and so forth, you can't get anything decent unless you're talking in terms of crores. How can somebody come up with the money for that kind of stuff? So people were perfectly happy to build these things and wait it out. And the average occupancy for some of these high-rise in Mumbai is, I heard, 39 to 42 months. You know, one monsoon season, all the cracks come, your leaks start happening. So if there is a builder, if I'm a builder in India, right, I want to sell everything I build before one monsoon strikes. That's what I would do. But people are willing to let it be there on the market for 39 months, 42 months, and nobody seems to worry about it. So this aspect really bugged me. So if I figured, how do you make these things affordable? How do you bring these prices down? Anything that goes up doesn't come down. What has to go up is the relative wealth of everybody else. And India is not a elastic price society. In other words, in US, if there is a recession, real estate falls down and things become more affordable. Like, for example, in the next 6 months, I expect the real estate in America to take a 20 to 30% correction. But in India, because it is all built on corruption and fake currency, the person who owns the thing is not in any rush to get rid of it. So we live in interesting times, but just so now, this was, if you think of a big pot of rice, this was one grain of rice that happened in 2011 that came to light. There was many more such instances. I believe most of them happened through Kochi also.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a query from Rajesh MB. He was asking about when will the digital currency arrive?
So digital currency has to first be tested out in, say, interbank transactions. It needs to be tested out in perhaps a small sector so that you can find out the computational requirements, how well it is working out, and so on and so forth. So I think Indian government can do it. Like, for example, one thing that I've been trying to tell people is, you know, if you take any university, a university has about 10 to 20,000 students. Let's take a university where people are staying in hostels, because then what happens is the students have to have more money circulation on a daily basis. So a university can start implementing blockchain. And the reason it's easy to do it there is IITs have probably better computational facilities. If all the IITs in India and IIMs, they all say that when the student comes in at the start of his term, he gets a card that is like a digital currency card. And the loading happens by his parents or by him when he enters. And from that point forward, all the stuff is handled using that card. So there is no cash transaction inside the campus. Everything is using this money, you go back and forth. Because then what happens is that will help the designers to understand how this money is behaving and how to get a better handle on this. You take a look at JNU, there's always this suspicion that money from outside is coming in. So that kind of stuff will stop. Because if you enforce that only digital currency is in vogue inside a campus, and I'm really, you know, strongly advocating that for JNU, AMU, all these troubled campuses, University of Hyderabad, all these troubled campuses, they should be the first ones implementing digital currency. Once you enter the campus, everybody deals with only digital currency, including the faculty. The faculty can have, like, for example, a part of their payments being done in digital currency. So when they go to the canteen for lunch, when they go to the supply store to pay for papers, they have to use this digital currency. So start small, perfect your model, and then start deploying. The way the GST was done was the wrong way. The right way to do digital currency is to take it from this level and grow it up. By the way, I heard that there's one institute of management in India that is already doing that. One institute is doing that. So that concept should be spread to others. It's very convenient, guys. You don't have to deal with change. You don't have to worry about a lot of little things. And in fact, banks can even give loans based on your loan profile and say, okay, I'll give you an overdraw limit of 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees because I know that you've in the past paid all this money. So all that stuff, the ecosystem will be allowed to develop on top of these campuses. I'm really hoping that that's where we introduce it. Children, young kids, they're always receptive to new technologies. They'll absorb it. They will take it like a fish takes to water, and you start there. I think that's what happens, because then you build the next generation to be aware of the goodness of some of these things, and then slowly it'll take a life of its own.
Okay. So then there's another question from Prajit KK. He's based it on the fact that there's too much of dollars being printed in the US, and therefore, because of the recessionary conditions that are coming up, there is a gold price hike that is going on. So he wants to know about the gold price, probably where will it go, and probably, something on the dollar.
So gold is now become the hedge currency. That means people have completely lost faith on dollar, euro, Deutsch. Well, there's no Deutschmark. The other one is British pound. So if you look at any of these countries, none of them have actually fared well against Corona. And this has something to do with the fact that it is a virus. It is not a form of bacteria. Like, if you have to try to figure out how is it that India has relatively, better face this virus, because India is more susceptible to bacteria, being a tropical climate, than viruses. Viruses are the ones that affect people in the colder climates. So dollar, I don't think is going to slide a whole lot. The reason is there is nothing else, and not everybody, and there's not enough gold in the world for everybody to start going back to like the Roman age, where you start trading in gold coins, and the granularity is not going to be lending itself to common transaction. So the digital transactions will start going up. In fact, in US, I think other than groceries, most people do their transactions using a credit card. Sometimes even in grocery stores, I've seen for 50 cents, 50 cents is 30 rupees, which is like almost nothing. Even that, people will be using their credit card to, charge it. So they say, because it's become a habit. I didn't carry my purse. I don't have anything. In fact, now, smartphones like this and Android phones, these things have software where you just wave it in front of the POS terminal, point of sale terminal, and it gets deducted from your account. So in terms of the reference of world, currency for the world, you tell me, sir, if not dollar and gold is not possible, what else can do? You have a global pandemic here. So that is the challenge.
Okay. Two questions I would like to combine into one. One is from Ajit Menon of Greater Cochin. He says, which other government is sincerely following this digital currency? Will the blockchain really prevent fake currencies to a certain extent, or will that be hacked and compromised somehow? That is one part. Similarly, the second question is from Ajit Basu, which is connected to the same thing. He says from 2030 to 2035, India will have about 100 crore working age people. How will blockchain approach, affect or promote entrepreneurship so that we'll have jobs and livelihood?
Very, very good question. The second question is very good. So let me first tell you about which countries are adopting blockchain. Today, it is being tested out in countries like Singapore and United Kingdom, unfortunately, these two countries are also the leaders in tax havens. People don't know this, but Singapore and Dubai are two, flourishing places for money laundering. Most of the money that leaves Indian politicians either finds its way to Dubai or Singapore. In fact, if you remember listening to one of Dr. Swami's lectures, he said that Mr. Chidambaram had Robert Vadra sitting in Dubai and Karthi Chidambaram sitting in Singapore, and these guys were manipulating the currency. I mean, I think Indian rupee went from 60 rupees to a dollar to 68 rupees a dollar, a 12% slide in a very short amount of time. And that was, induced because some people wanted to, make money off of India's misery. So every time, I just basic thing for anybody, every time the rupee loses 1 rupee against the dollar, that loss is being shared by the 1.3 billion people. In other words, for somebody's inefficiencies, you are paying for it. So I would love someone to ask this question. I would like to know that formula that the finance ministry so closely guards in its chest, the basket of currency computation. It is my belief that that is being rigged. Anyway, back to digital currencies. Singapore has done some things. UK has done some things. But yes, China is trying to do digital RMB. China's problem is slightly different, and I'll come to that in just 1 second. Unless US gets behind digital currency, you're not going to have that. Facebook tried something called as a Libra. What they used was a variation of blockchain called a stable coin. But all the banks in US said, no, don't let Facebook come in, because they are deathly scared of Silicon Valley startup, because these guys don't understand what these guys do. And they think that once Facebook starts doing transactions, you are having conversations, you're also having transactions with your friends. You're having transactions with your son and your daughter and everything. Suddenly the bank doesn't need to exist. So that existential crisis has forced all the banks in US to band together and stop digital currency from adoption in US. When US does it, that's when the world will turn. As to digital RMB in China, remember I told you, nobody does transactions with the RMB outside. 98% of imports and exports out of China is not done in RMB. Even a poor country like Pakistan doesn't want to deal with RMBs. You see, so that is the challenge that China has. So what China tried to do, they said, okay, we are going to come up with a digital version of our RMB. We call it a digital RMB that is on a blockchain that has, blockchain has one feature called as a smart contract. What a smart contract does is, some of you may know what is called as escrow. An escrow is something where the buyer and seller, once they agree on the price, the amount is deposited by the buyer into the escrow account. And if the seller fulfills all his obligations, then the escrow will release it to the escrow will release it to the seller. So this escrow method, they wanted to introduce using digital RMB. They said the digital RMB is backed by gold, so you don't need to worry about its valuation. And the second thing they said was using smart contracts. Smart contracts work like an escrow. So when somebody is buying goods from China, and the time the goods are docked and the QA at the receiving side says everything is okay, the transfer takes place automatically. Today also it happens, called letter of credit and things like that, except this was like instantaneous. In seconds they would like to do that. That is what China is trying to do. They have introduced digital RMB in 5 cities, and they are like Shanghai, Beijing. They're trying to transact it. In fact, China, life of an average person in China has undergone a huge transformation. I urge everyone to watch my conversation with General Robert Spalding, who is a China expert, as to how he sees life in China. Very, very scary. Very scary, I can tell you that. Anyway, so I hope I answered that question. So as far as blockchain taking jobs away, this rumor mongering, this thing is always been going on, that you bring this thing, then jobs go away. You bring this thing, then jobs go away. I don't think so. I think the blockchain technology will give rise to a lot of verticals. I'll give you some examples. If you think about a bank loan to a farmer, right? 4 lakhs a bank wants to give as a loan to farmer. Now, the bank can stipulate that I'm giving you this loan to spend 50% on fertilizers, 50% on renting a tractor, and 50% for other things like seeds. Okay. Now, the bank can mandate this in the loan via smart contract, because the bank will be able to figure out which fertilizer company has gone and bought it from, which seeds company has bought it from, which truck company has rented it from. Since the ecosystem can be closed. So what happens? The value of the loan goes up because the bank now can effectively monitor the spending of its loan. So there is no question of giving a loan forgiveness afterward, because you know where the money is going. Second thing is, the farmer will scream. He'll say, look, I've gone for 4 lakhs. I cannot, there's no middleman here. Bank takes the farmer's bank account and puts it in there, and he is mandated to spend it only in a certain way. So these kinds of things will happen. And then what happens? Bank will have better loan profiles of users. They can come and say, okay, I'll give you micro loans. You want to conduct the marriage of your daughter? Use this, because I know your repayment portfolio is solid. So like this, there'll be a lot of vertical applications. Everything will be on your smartphone. I'll give you another example. Farmer will be able to decide, if I wait 7 days to collect money for my rice, I can get a better profit because I can sell it to UP, sitting in Tamil Nadu. If I sell it in the local Sunday, local bazaar, I will get less amount of money. Depending on his risk for money, he can choose it, and the whole decision making can be done using smartphone. These kind of apps will start coming up. 100% I can guarantee you, India has the wherewithal, the smartness to do these kinds of apps. In fact, I don't know how many of you have heard about it. PGurus has a mobile app. This mobile app was completely done by engineers sitting in India, not in Bangalore, not in Gurgaon, not in some of the known IT hubs. I had this thing done in a very small third level type of third tier town, and the guys did it. It's just amazing the amount of talent that is there in India. You are going to see a lot of these verticals. We will all be using our smartphones to practically run our lives, make life easy. This is going to happen. And the first important step for that was the deployment of fiber-based internet connectivity that Jio is doing now, Airtel is doing now. I urge every one of you, invest that 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees a month to get that, because your life will be transformed. The amount of stuff you can do with that, that productivity pays for itself in very, very quick time. Because your children, now I don't think you have a choice, because there's so much online learning that your children are forced to learn. So you will have to go and do this thing. But here is a new area that will really take off. In fact, movies, Bollywood, I think, is seen its best days. You will start seeing more and more online streaming content, online stuff where people can monitor your payment also. That is an important thing. And all these huge cabals, these nexuses that have formed, everything will go away, just vanish over time. But it needs a little bit of a mindset about being proud of who you are. And then you have to know your compass. What is right? What is wrong? I might be paying a little bit more to this guy, but I know this guy is manufacturing it in India. I need to encourage him. That spirit has to come for everyone. I'm not just saying about India. For Americans, the same thing for America also. You are going to see this thing happen in every country. I'm almost close to my end time. If you could just give me one more question, please, because I need to go to my next hangout.
Okay. There is a question on the, the rupee. You said it was around 45 rupees. So right. The question is from Kaushik. He says, what is the, why do you think the rupee should be at 45.1? And there is also a related question from somebody, Motoji. He says, what according to you is the level the currency should be, level of fake currency in India now? From Nandakumar.
The level of fake currency, I think RBI has to make a stand. I really, really want them to say how much came in. What is wrong in knowing the truth? You made a mistake, you made a mistake. Accept it and move on. Because if they say this number and say that, look, this is one reason why everybody should have bank accounts and start using Paytm and other online. There's an excellent platform called Beam, BHIM, I've heard nothing but good things about it. Start using these things for your day-to-day transactions, and life will be much smoother. There is no, kanak that you have with your local grocer for the month. All that stuff can be done in a better way. But the reason why rupees should appreciate is today, using this artificial exchange rate, a lot of hanky-panky is going on. A lot of hanky-panky is going on. Cuts are being given to politicians that doesn't even come to India. What happens is, I'll give you a simple example, coal scam that took place during the UPA regime. Suddenly, the Supreme Court says no more coal mining in India. All the coal-based power plants need coal. So what India does, India decides to import coal from Indonesia. Coal comes from Indonesia to Mumbai on these barges, right? But how about the invoice for the coal? From Indonesia, it goes to Hong Kong, it goes to Singapore, it goes to Dubai, and then it comes to Mumbai. At every stage, there is a markup, 10%, 20%. So what happens is, what should have costed 2 rupees per unit power, the poor man is paying 4 rupees, 5 rupees, 6 rupees per unit. So you have to wring out this inefficiency. And you can do that by taking a stand saying India is going to keep its rupee pegged at 50 rupees a dollar for about 2 years. Don't change it for 2 years. Come what may, don't change it for 2 years. All the Infosys companies will all scream, oh, we're going to have a lot of problem because we're going to have a deficit in our... These guys were doing fine when they went public at when Indian rupee was only 45 rupees to a dollar. They could do, it is just that their bench is now sitting idle. They are perfectly happy having 20, 30% of the people sitting on bench do nothing in the hope of the next contract. And that inefficiencies have to be wrung out. I have no sympathy for all the companies that are giving manpower, because in my opinion, they should be doing products. And those products have to be done for India, consumed by Indians. I hope this mindset comes through. First step is, and they should have done it by now. I don't know why, the finance ministry mandarins cannot think out of the box. They still have the same old socialist mindset. What will that guy think? What will this guy think? Everybody has fire in his own house. They don't have time to look at your fire. India could have just said, okay, we are going to deal with this in this way, 50 rupees to a dollar, period, for 2 years until we figure out another way. Nothing would have happened. Nothing would have gone wrong. The whole exports have stopped. The whole imports have stopped. Why can't you do this? Because once you peg the thing, right, all this over-invoicing, under-invoicing will vanish. People don't know. I mean, they cannot do any kind of hanky-panky here, but they won't do it because they'll say, oh, if I do that, there is 10,000 people who are working in foreign exchange desk in all these banks. These people will not have any work. And therefore, we should not, that is not the way to think. You can find work for them somewhere else. There is so much of this kind of a thinking. What about that guy's job? What about this guy's job? You can just pay them salary for 6 months until you figure out how to make use of their time. It is entirely possible. This happens all the time in the West. So I think India needs to bite the bullet and take some of these hard decisions. And I think it will be good for India.
One last question, if you don't mind, that is
Yes.
from me. Basically, see, you in your book, you have talked about the fake currency aspect. Now it has been metal currency using gold. So what is the impact of that, according to you, so far? I mean, if you look at the fact that the fake currency was managed through demonetization, what is the impact of that so far? Because that's of topical interest right now. That is why I'm asking it.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that might encourage the gold smuggling even more. But I was on a hangout with Dr. Swami on his series called Gyan Ganga. And I had said that the Indian banks, all the banks, can mandate that whenever they give loans to MSMEs or other farmers and everything, they can take some of their gold as collateral, and they can actually have machines to wait and say, this is what your gold is worth. I mean, they'll know the purity check also. This is what it is worth. We are going to keep it in a locker. We will not destroy this. It will be yours. Once you pay it, we'll give you back. What happens then is the RBI knows the amount of gold that it has. Once the RBI knows the amount of gold it has, it can go and tell the world, this is the price that I'm going to set for. India is the second largest consumer after China. And China is consuming it only because they wanted to put the digital RMB in place. That's why they are taking it. But average Chinese don't wear gold. They don't have this wisdom that, no matter what goes on, gold will be there forever. They don't have that mindset. India does. So it needs to do that. If you can fine-tune that thing a little bit, I think that will be a good way to go. Of course, they need to make sure that the lockers are safe. It's still a relatively easy thing to do, in my opinion, because India needs to find a basis for why it says that my currency is worth 40 or 50. When you find out the amount of gold it has and say that I have so much gold at my disposal and I can back part of that against my currency, believe me, India will be a very safe haven for a lot of people. We don't realize the amount of money we are sitting on, the wealth that we are sitting on.
Okay, so thank you so much for your wonderful talk. We have the rest of it in terms of felicitation, all that. You can log out whenever you feel like. I would start on the felicitation immediately. I would request our state president, Rajan Nair, to offer his felicitations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iyer. It's a great pleasure
Thank you,
to
sir.
have you.
Thank you.
We had a wonderful session, and should be icebreaking session for us to utilize the exchange rates. We are also an exporters. We are one of the largest exporters of marine products from India, and that will, we sell our products at cheaper prices. You must guide us on and often like this when our such opportunities comes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, President Rajan. I believe the State Secretary Padma Bhushan and State Treasurer PVN Men are not online now. So I'd request our State Vice President Hari Govind to offer his felicitations. Hari Govind.
Hello.
Hello. I'm audible?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
It was really a wonderful session, Mr. Sree Iyer, and to educate us on this money laundering and other sort of financial issues which we are going through. And we expect your cooperation in the coming meetings also, because this is an economic forum where lots of your thoughts should be beneficial for us. Thank you so much, sir, for spending your time with us. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
Thank you.
Thank you once
Please.
again. By the way, I would love to come back and talk to you all after my second book is launched, maybe a month's time, 2 months' time. You will have a lot of questions. Believe me, it is very topical. It's going to open a lot of eyebrows.
We would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you so much.
good morning to you and a happy day. Good day ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wonderful.